Thank you for joining today's session. We will be getting started shortly. We do have a lot of folks signed up for today's session, and we want to give everyone a moment to log on and get connected so that we can dive into today's session. I do want to thank you all for joining us today. I am Jasmine Garrett here with the New Jersey Economic Development Authority. Today's session is an informational overview on the Film and Digital Media Tax Credit Program. A quick housekeeping note, we do suspect that many questions will be answered in today's presentation. However, you are able to write in questions at any point during the presentation using Zoom's Q&A feature. It is one of your Zoom command options and will allow us to make sure we're able to get back to you and let others see these questions and answers as well. Today's session is being recorded and will be posted on our NJEDA and YouTube pages. The slides and other resources will also be available in the next few days. Now to get us started with the presentation, I will shift things over to NJEDA's Director of Incentives, Servicing, and Compliance, Tyshawn Lee. Thank you.
Thank you, Jasmine. And I just want to welcome and thank you all for taking time out of your busy schedules to attend today's session, especially during this holiday week. I hope everybody had a good Memorial Day weekend, although a lot of us were kind of rained out. It's still the unofficial start to summer for a lot of us, so I hope everybody had a good weekend. Again, as Jasmine stated, my name is Tyshawn Lee. I am the director of our tax credit relationship management team. Also, just wanted to quickly introduce some of my team members here today. We have Senior Relationship Officer Tom McCusker.
Good afternoon.
And we also have our new team lead in our relationship management team, Mercedes White.
Wow.
Also, we have Denise Goldburn, one of our senior relationship officers who is unable to be with us today, but a lot of you are probably familiar with Denise for handling some of your reviews as well. So again, thank you. And as I mentioned, this will be a continuation and expansion of the webinar that we conducted in November, where we hope to provide a refresher for those of you who attended that session. And if this is your first time, to provide some updates and guidance on the program and the certification process, with the purpose of keeping everyone up to speed on the latest and greatest in the world of film and digital media. So we found that our time frame for project certification review and issuance has been pretty good thus far, but there are still some issues we found that can contribute to delays in reviews, and are hoping that we can work with the CPA firms to eliminate or at least reduce the need to question certain aspects of any submission. So with that being said, let's jump into this guide on requirements, certification, and compliance elements of the program. So what is the Film and Digital Media Tax Credit? Well, program is New Jersey state incentive for film, television, and digital media projects. To date, there have been several revisions to the statutes and regulations as the program continues to evolve and expand. The most recent updated regulations were approved by our board on October 30th, 2025. So the program provides a tax credit based on qualified production expenses, and each project's approval letter outlines the exact details that pertain to that film or digital project. Overall, the incentive encourages job creation, spending, and economic growth within the state. So let's jump into some key program requirements under the film, again, as a refresher. So for the film program, productions need to meet a minimum spending threshold. That means at least $1 million spent in New Jersey expenses, or at least 60% of the total production expenses, exclusive of post-production costs incurred for services performed and goods purchased through authorized New Jersey vendors. And just as a side note, this requirement will apply to reality show applicants with completed applications submitted after June 30th, 2025. So you will continue to hear that date, June 30th, 2025, several times today throughout the presentation, as that is when the current law became effective. So we have qualified expenses, and these include things like wages, set construction, equipment, and post-production work. Productions also need to demonstrate in-state spending by using New Jersey-based vendors and workers. And finally, the project must film some portion in New Jersey to be eligible for the credit. So now let's talk about some key program requirements for the digital media portion. So for the digital media incentive, there are now two paths to eligibility, and projects need to meet minimum spending requirements under both. So under path number one, applicants must incur at least $2 million in New Jersey vendor expenses in a single tax year, and at least 50% of the qualified digital media content production expenses are for wages and salaries paid to full-time or full-time equivalent employees working in New Jersey. Under path number two, again for completed applications submitted after June 30th, 2025, applicants must incur at least $500,000 in qualified digital media content production expenses in New Jersey, specifically for post-production work in a single tax year. This can be demonstrated through one of four ways, as you can see here on the slide, either through a qualified post-production company or by a film lease post-production company, at a New Jersey film lease partner facility, or by a New Jersey studio partner. And all of these are defined terms in our regulations. You can also see here on the screen how the credit amounts are determined depending on who is incurring those specific expenses. So who is the digital media program for? Path number one, or what we refer to as our legacy digital program, is for any New Jersey business incurring digital media expenses in the state. Path number two, or the post-production only portion of the digital program, again, for completed applications submitted after 6/30/2025, is for any film production company or other entity incurring post-production expenses in the state. And remember, it has to be through one of the four applicant types mentioned on the previous slide. So at a film lease partner facility, by a film lease post-production company, by a studio partner, or by a qualified post-production company. Continuing on with some key program requirements, the qualified expenses for this program cover a wide range of production and post-production costs. Some of these costs include things like wages and salaries, construction, computer hardware and software, data processing, visualization technologies, editing, and the rental of facilities and equipment. It also includes post-production work like editing, sound design, visual effects, animation, music composition, color grading, and mastering. Uh, Digital media content is digitally formatted and distributed content, which includes data created in analog form but reformatted into digital form. Some of that content includes animation, visual effects, interactive media, including virtual or mixed reality, content containing text, graphics, or photographs, sound, and video. And similar to the film program, projects must demonstrate in-state spending by using New Jersey-based vendors and workers. So let's jump into the certification and compliance process. CPAs, if you are engaged early enough, please remind our applicants and your clients to track all expenses they're looking to include as qualified. Make sure that all applicable documentation is submitted to the EDA by the applicable deadlines. And post-production, You want to make sure to submit your final production documentation and supporting docs by the deadline as stated in the project's approval letter. And as a side note, it is on the applicant to know the useful life of their tax credit and when it can be used, either for themselves or for a potential buyer. Uh, this would be a good instance to consult your tax professional if you are unsure about that. And please remind your clients to retain all supporting docs of incurred expenses on approved projects, as we are a public entity who is subject to various audits from different areas. Some applicants could be selected to have their project audited, and if so, we just ask that the applicants are aware of and responsive to those auditor requests. Now, let's get familiar with navigation. So, a lot of what we do and use is on our website, www.njeda.gov, which is a very robust and a great source of information for our incentive programs, specifically in this case, the Film and Digital Media Program. So for ease of use and reference here today, we created a link directly to our page, which you can see up on the screen. So we can navigate down, you see we have our program basics. So if we click on that, here you can find highlights and details of each of the program components. Um, each one each one contains overview of the program, eligibility criteria, and the applicable award percentage amounts under each program. You can also see there's additional detail there and eligibility on the New Jersey hiring bonus. If you click on the digital media, same thing, program overview. You can see the two eligibility paths and the different award amount percentages. Click on the studio partner. Excuse me. Same thing, overview, eligibility, award amount percentages. You can also see the different caps on the above the line salary and wage expenses that can be included. And if we go to the film lease partner, same thing here. You can find out more information on film lease partners and the film lease production companies, eligibility information, award amount percentages, just like all the other components. And as mentioned, there's also now a tab for the hiring bonus right here. So you can get an overview of that bonus, what it entails. It's up to 4%. Again, you see that for completed applications submitted after June 30th, 2025. And it just provides information on how you can evidence, provide evidence for the hiring bonus. So now we can scroll down to the individual program tabs. You can see here we have the film tax credit banner here. So you have application eligibility fees and things like that. And here you can also find some of the forms and documents useful to CPAs housed here, including the aforementioned hiring bonus. Also have the link to our frequently asked questions. There's a link for our agreed upon procedures for the CPA verification report, as well as the film tax credit transfer application. So you can click on any of those links and download those forms that are applicable to you. Here, when you click on the individual programs, it gives a lot more detailed information on eligibility criteria and other important information that you need in order to apply for that program. So if we can click on the digital media tab, again, here you'll find more detailed information on the digital program eligibility, but you can also find the agreed upon procedures template here, which is specific to the digital media program. And again, you see the New Jersey hiring bonus form. click on studio partners and film lease partners. Here you have the applications for the designation, either for the studio partner or film lease partner. You have the studio partner and film lease production company checklist, and you also have the New Jersey hiring plan form. Um, what you don't see here is the Promote New Jersey plan form, which will be up shortly, but that is applicable for, it's an additional bonus up to 4% for studio partners and film lease production companies. So you will see that form up on the website in the very near future. So be on the lookout for that. So we look over to the right side of the screen. We have our certification documents. So you should all be very familiar with these as they are required for every project certification submission. So you see we have our certification checklist, the certification of no events of default, the payroll certification, the qualified New Jersey vendor listing form, and the cost certification workbook. So you should be familiar with these. You can download them and use them at your convenience. Okay, if we scroll up some, we can see we have a tab here for our frequently asked questions. I would highly encourage you all to download a copy of this document for ease of reference and as a very helpful guide to a lot of the common questions you may have regarding the program. This document gets updated pretty regularly when new questions need to be added. It has a robust and detailed table of contents to help with navigating to specific areas of interest. So again, highly encourage you to download that for ease of reference. Next, I want to talk about the business registration certificates, which is another big part of the certification process. BRCs can be obtained through the state's DORIS website, which stands for Division of Revenue and Enterprise Services. And when you go to that site, you can click on the online registration inquiry and enter the applicable information, as you can see up here on the screen. Once you enter that information and hit submit, it will generate a current valid business registration certificate. Also, the link to this page can also be found within our frequently asked questions guide, excuse me, on page 12. And lastly, we can navigate to tax clearance. So here you can find instructions for securing and obtaining a valid tax clearance certificate. This is a required document as part of the certification package. And it's taxation's way of saying that the applicant is in good standing at that moment in time. So this is our film and digital media webpage in a nutshell. So I would highly encourage you to visit and get familiar with this webpage if you have not done so already. So now let's just jump back into the presentation. And we'll talk about personally identifiable information, or what we like to term PII. So it's 2026, and we are mindful of data that we receive and the importance of protecting sensitive information. Cybersecurity in this day and age is paramount, and we must all do our part to protect it. So we ask that when sharing documents with the EDA, please do not send any password protected or encrypted files. We have a secure system in place where you can safely upload all of your documents. So when ready to certify, please email your assigned officer and they will provide you with a secured link, and all your sensitive data should be uploaded via this method. It's also important to know that the NJEDA will reject any PII submitted through unsecured channels. That includes things like social security numbers, financial records, and employer or employee information. So please make sure all sensitive documents are uploaded through the secure portal. So now let's jump into the elements of what makes up a complete certification package. We have seen improvement year over year in the number and the quality of complete certifications that have been submitted. This leads to far better reviews and quicker turnaround times in getting the tax credits issued. So the complete certification package consists of several elements. The cost certification workbook, which should be signed by whomever is taking responsibility for its content. The payroll certification, whether using our template, as you saw on the EDA website, or a third-party report is also an acceptable way of showing the payroll. Proof of withholding and support. We do need to verify that the appropriate taxes were withheld. Regardless of who actually paid the employee, any documentation that will corroborate the amounts presented in the AUP will be acceptable. Full vendor listing is required as well. In addition, CPA's agreed upon procedures report with preferably whatever relevant attachments or exhibits that are referenced in the body of that report. We'd like to have those as well. Also, CPAs, please provide a current peer review letter with any submission of an AUP. And of course, a current valid tax clearance certificate is always needed. So in addition to the previous items mentioned and specific to film, we will need the principal photography dates, which we will get corroboration on from the Motion Picture Commission. Also for film, evidence that the appropriate marketing materials or logo appear in the end credits of the film. Again, this will be corroborated by the Motion Picture Commission. The non-default certification, which was again in the list of documents on the website, should be filled out in its entirety and signed by an authorized representative of the applicant. And prevailing wage affirmative action waiver or release letter. This is typically part of the executed approval letter. And this just lets us know that the project is not subject to prevailing wage requirements in New Jersey. All of these components together make up a complete certification submission. So as mentioned previously, and as we were navigating on the website, we now have a hiring bonus, which has replaced the diversity bonus. Again, for completed applications submitted after 6/30/2025. You must submit a hiring plan at the time of application. Then submit a payroll report to a third-party CPA who is completing your cost verification report and who will also confirm if you achieved your hiring goals or made best efforts. We know a large number of the approved projects to date do have a diversity bonus attached. So that would be completed applications submitted prior to 6/30/2025. So the appropriate support is needed at the time of certification, whether evidenced through a third-party payroll report or if you are using our tracking sheets and goal tracker, which again, as I mentioned earlier, are available upon request if you choose to use those documents to show proof of meeting the diversity bonus criteria. So now we're going to go over and jump into some of the common issues that can slow down the review and certification process so that you are aware and can address these items before submitting, which can help facilitate the review process. So to help me do that, I will now turn it over to our Senior Relationship Officer, Tom Cusker, to go into more detail on these issues. Tom?
Yep. Thank you, Tyshawn. Good afternoon, everyone. As Tyshawn mentioned, I will be now taking you through some of the common issues that can lead to the slowing down of the certification process. First, we have withholdings. While the CPA is tasked with the verification, EDA must also be able to view and confirm the appropriate withholdings. Many times this verification is not detailed, and the EDA will require supplemental information. This will cut down on our back and forth. Next, we have diversity. A few things here. If this is captured on the project's payroll report, please be sure to include a summary calculation confirming the project has met the requirement. Also, please note, each employee may only be counted once in the calculation, meaning if the employee is female minority, they can only be counted as a female or a minority, not both. Next, we have the tax clearance. This must be the name of our applicant. The tax ID number must match the project's application, and the certs are valid for 180 days. I'll be showing you an example of what that looks like in the next few slides. And finally, business registration certificates. Be sure to quantify and include those that meet the reporting threshold based on their award sizes. Including these initially will cut down on our processing time. Now, piggybacking off the last slide, this is what a New Jersey business registration certificate should look like. The cert includes the taxpayer's name, address, effective date, and issuance date. As discussed previously, at the time of submission, it would be extremely helpful if the CPA could quantify the number of vendors that rose to meet the reporting threshold based on their award size. For example, 85 vendors are submitted on the vendor list, but only 5 BRCs are provided. Why is that? Was there only 5 vendors tested? So as you can see, the CPA quantifying this for us would be very, very helpful. Okay, now we're on to the tax clearance. This is what the clearance should look like. As discussed previously, this must include the name of our applicant, and the tax ID number must match the project's application. Typically, the clearance submitted typically this clearance is submitted at the time of application or at approval or stale by the end of the certification review, since they're only good for 180 days. Keeping an eye on these expiration dates and sending an updated tax clearance when the dates are approaching would be very helpful, and again, would cut down on our processing time. Okay, now on to our vendor list, qualified loanouts and 1099 employees. The vendor list should be fully completed. Absent a tax identification number, the registration cannot be confirmed. So be sure to be filling out these entirely. And although the CPA qualifies the non-payroll expenses, EDA does require supporting documentation for our file as well. Be sure to identify the 1099 employees and provide proof withholding was requested. Also, if information that was captured on a WR-330 is supplied as part of the third-party payroll report, again, we can accept that. Please note, after July 10th, 2024, qualified loanouts must be authorized to do business in New Jersey. Okay, here are some examples of disallowed expenses. CPA fees for AUP prep, fees paid to the NJEDA to obtain the credit, including but not limited to budget review, application and issuance and transfer fees, also story rights, intellectual property, acquisitions, copyrights. An itemized list of the disallowed expenses would be very helpful to reduce our questions during this process. And continuing with the disallowed expense theme, these are specifically for the digital media. Marketing, promotion, or advertising digital media, costs related to the acquisition or licensing of the digital media content. Applications after July 10th, 2024 exclude costs incurred for design, maintenance, and hosting of websites, intangible personal property, story rights, intellectual property acquisitions, copyrights, salary expense, and other costs not directly related to production of digital media content. Okay, next is the transfer process and its required documents. To process the transfer, EDA requires these items: a fully executed transfer application and purchase agreement. Note our transfer applications are located on our website, and of course the purchase agreement would not be an EDA document, being the contract between the applicant and the buyer. A valid tax clearance for both the buyer and seller, and the issuance and transfer fees must also be received. Few common issues we come across are mismatches in names and tax identification numbers. So again, be sure to look closely before submitting. We also run up against stale tax clearances frequently, as we touched on earlier. Just be sure to keep an eye on the expiration dates of the clearances for your project. Okay, continuing with the transfer process and some of the issues we run into. The buyer must have a CBT, corporation business tax, IPT, insurance premiums tax, or GIT, gross income tax liability for the vintage year of the credit. Similar to the issues we talked about in the previous slide, the tax identification number on the application must match the ID number on the tax clearance certificate. The buyer must be fully and properly formed and registered in New Jersey, and the buyer's name and tax ID numbers must be consistent on all documents. And also, we want to note that the following transfer info will be posted to our website. The name of the transferor, the name of the transferee, the value of the tax credit transfer certificate, and the state against which the transferee may apply the tax credit. So now I'm going to send it on back to my director, Tyshawn, who will speak to you about the certifications usage. Tyshawn?
Thanks, Tom. Appreciate it. So, in continuing on with the theme of transfers, and as we mentioned a couple of slides ago, as part of the recent amended legislation, buyers of tax credits under the program can now use them to offset not only CBT and GIT liabilities, but now can be transferred for use against insurance premiums, tax liability. So stakeholders have commented and pushed for this change for a long time, and now it's included as part of the latest program rule changes. Excuse me. Also, the recent law changes expanded the flexibility in which tax credits can be used. Previously, tax credit certificates were tied to a specific vintage year indicated at time of approval. But moving forward for completed applications, again after 6/30/2025, can be applied to different tax periods without the need to amend the return for the period for which the tax credit was issued. So credits can be taken for the tax period for which it was issued, for the tax period in which it was issued, or any of the next successive tax periods, subject to the applicable carry forward provisions under each tax law. So now, as we kind of wind down here and get into the home stretch of today's training, I want to highlight for your information some of the key changes under Public Law 2025, Chapter 81. I won't be going into great detail on these today, but wanted to just summarize and let you know that we are currently working to incorporate these changes into our certification process and documentation. So let's just run through some of these highlights. First off, the program was extended out another 10 years through 2049, so you can apply all the way up through 2049. I don't know if all of us will still be here, but you'll be able to apply all the way that far out. The Studio Partner Credit Award amount has been increased to 40% of the qualified film production expenses. And with stackable bonuses could go up to a maximum of 45%. They created a new applicant category and definition for New Jersey Film Lease Post-Production Company, again, which can be found in our regulations. The new law created new definition for qualified post-production company and removed the term from the previous iteration of the law of independent post-production company. It also expanded the film definition for studio partners to include certain ongoing television productions that have relocated to New Jersey under certain criteria outlined in the definition. It also updated the recapture provisions under the law. So it created a safe harbor period of up to 2 years after lease signing when the authority will not recapture any issued tax credits. It also established an exception to the recapture for studio partners and some film lease production companies who receive tax credits based upon leased space and are unable to meet occupancy requirements for reasons outside of the recipient's control. And that term, reasons outside of the recipient's control, is a defined term in the regulations, so you can look that up in there as well. It also limited the diversity plan requirements, which we mentioned several times, but it has been replaced and established the 4% hiring bonus, as we mentioned, as well as the Promote New Jersey bonus, also 4%, based on certain criteria being satisfied. These bonuses are stackable with a cap up to 5%. If you are an approved applicant that is either a studio partner or a film lease production company, which means that at the time of application, you need to submit a hiring plan as well as a plan outlining specific goals to promote or invest in New Jersey. And said plan must include 4 out of 8 criteria as outlined in the regulations to qualify. So I know that was a lot to take in, but again, we wanted to highlight, some of the major changes in the recent law, and would highly encourage you to reference the following resources on our website to get more familiar with the recent changes. So for those of you who are unaware, EO 63 refers to Governor Murphy's Executive Order number 63, whereby the EDA provides opportunities for stakeholders and the public to engage with the EDA in crafting new rules and rule amendments in advance of the formal rule proposal and adoption process. So the public is invited to engage with EDA and comment on the draft rules and rule amendments in 2 ways, either by submitting written feedback or by attending a listening session. So the link that you see there on the screen will take you to all 4 of those presentations that were done as part of this rule proposal process. Also, as you know, there have the final rules have now been finalized and included on our website that we mentioned earlier. Again, this information, we have direct links up on the screen here, but those finalized statutes and regulations can also be found on the film page on the EDA website. So where to find all of this information? Again, as we mentioned earlier, our website would be the best source for all things film and digital media. I would encourage you, again, to be familiar with this page if you have not done so already. It's updated frequently to try and stay real time with the latest information on the program. Contact information. We have our dedicated email box, again, at filmcertification@njeda.gov. So here you can email your questions, clarifications for certification requirements, or other comments and concerns. So the team here, we do monitor this email box regularly. So if you do send something to it, we will take a look and then respond to those questions or concerns in a timely manner. And then we have the other resources that I mentioned earlier, our frequently asked questions. We have several checklists and other tax credit instructions, again, can all be found on our website. We do have a post-attendance survey, as you see here, and this QR code will lead you to the May 2026 version of the survey. As mentioned earlier and in the publicity materials, we are capturing the CPA firm names for publication on our website. That way, potential applicants who are seeking a CPA for purposes of the agreed upon procedures report would know who has taken advantage of these training opportunities and is possibly more familiar with the latest guidelines. So all previous trainings are currently on our website, along with the list of CPA attendees from each training. That list will be updated upon completion of this training as well. This training is being recorded, as were the previous sessions, so that in the event you were not able to attend the live session, you can visit our website and watch a replay, fill out the survey, and still have your name listed as having viewed that particular session. So that concludes our training session for today. And again, I appreciate your time and attention to this important information as the program continues to evolve. So before we end and open it up to any questions that we may have in the chat, I just wanted to share a few things that we anticipate going into on our next webinar planned for sometime in the fall. These things are not necessarily set in stone, and some could change by the time we get there. So don't hold me to it. But we are working hard to, make sure that the necessary programmatic updates and changes are reflected. So we will go into more detail on the program changes that were mentioned here today from Public Law 2025, Chapter 81. We also hope to have a revised AUP, updated frequently asked questions, and other supporting documentation, an updated payroll certification form, constantly trying to update our reporting technology, so be on the lookout for that, as well as the process, which is in the works for qualified CPA firms for the film and digital media tax credit program. So these are all things that are in the works, and we hope to be able to go into more detail on these items in our next training session. So we hope you all have a great spring, have a great summer, and we will see you all in the fall. Thank you. So Tom, do we have any questions in the chat from today's session, or did we just do a phenomenal job that there's nothing anyone has to ask us?
It looks like we did a phenomenal job. There's no questions today.
Okay, well, great. If there are no questions, or if there's something that you think about after this presentation, again, please feel free to either reach out to your individual officers, or again, as I mentioned, we have the dedicated mailbox, film certification at NJEDA.gov. So you can send questions, comments, concerns there at any time. We will be monitoring that mailbox, and we will get responses to you in a timely manner. So again, I want to thank everybody for attending today's session, and we will see you all in the fall. Have a great afternoon, everybody.